Greetings, magnificent souls, to the Attract Health, Build Wealth podcast, where we have open and honest discussions about ourselves. This is a place where we break down, break away, and break through codependency, allowing ourselves to attract health, build wealth, and live a peaceful life. We are tired of being sick and tired. We are tired, but we are not giving up. We know that there is something magnificent inside of us. And because we are fighting daily, hourly, and by the minute, fighting ourselves, our kids, our spouses, we have to do things differently. We have to break the cycle. We don't have a million chances. We have to be happy now. We have to find a way. So how do we do that? How is that possible? If you look around at what society is telling you, they tell you that what we're doing is impossible. Yet it's happening every single day. It's happening through the practice and the love that we call awakening the magnificent soul. We are all magnificent souls, and these are our stories of healing. Today, in episode 50, I wanted to talk today about a question I received recently about a listener's codependency. And here's the question: will the relationship I want ever be? So in this episode, I'll talk about my thoughts about this question and some general thoughts about how codependency can tend to suck the life out of you sometimes. But before we get into this discussion, please let me know your thoughts about this episode, any feedback you have, or anything you would like me to cover on future podcasts at epiphanyvault.com. Remember, it is a safe place, and I would welcome the discussion. And speaking of the Epiphany Vault, a big shout out to Alex, who poured his heart out into the Epiphany Vault and gave me permission to share his entry with you. So I wanted to share with you what Alex wrote. He writes, I lived through childhood trauma as a teenager and a young adult. I had a problem with alcohol. Met a girl, had a child while in a toxic relationship, still had a problem with alcohol, couldn't cope with it at all, and left. Then I turned to drugs because I still couldn't cope. 6 years later, I had a life-changing event while dealing with my past. I wrote about because I was institutionalized and I had to explain my life story. Here's my story. I am aware that there are absolutely no excuses for driving while impaired. I would like to take this time to outline some of my past that contributed to my way of life and past behavior, and the events that have led up to the changing my life for the positive. This writing may sound as if I'm laying blame, but that is not the case. It is meant to explain my own awareness. I understand there are people who are hurt in life, who didn't grow up to have a problem with alcohol, but that wasn't the case for me. During the times I had been charged with impaired driving, my son was 2 days old and 7 months old and 5 years old. It is easy to see that alcohol was destroying my life, but I was unable to control it at the time. It wasn't until later in life that I put in the work for self-care, and self-care has now become a passion for me. Nowadays, I feel personally let down if I skip it. It is known that there are underlying issues that cause a person to use substances to the point where it affects their daily life. I believe mine was based on a broken individual with no direction in life, an over-exaggerated ego driven by weak confidence and low self-esteem, and a sense of entitlement founded by my hurt combined with a lack of coping skills. I experienced childhood events, which I'd come to realize is called trauma, most of which stem from my home environment. A home life that lacked proper guidance and structure. Although I had a caring and loving mother, she was emotionally and spiritually wounded by her childhood. My father, though he was present, was an angry, narcissistic alcoholic who chose not to speak to me, never mind to be a parent, even though he had an abundance of knowledge. I agree this sounds a lot like blaming, finger-pointing, and not owning up to one's responsibility for poor decision-making. But after having a positive, life-changing event, I was able to seek a path of healing and came to the realization that a lot of who we are comes from the past. It took time, energy, and a lot of understanding to pull my inner child, adolescent, and adult being together, and for the three to be stable enough to work as one and know what it means to become resilient. On a journey of acceptance and acknowledgement that things didn't go well and the logical reasons why, I have learned that it doesn't have to lead to a lifetime of personal misfortunes and a recycling of unhealthy living. It has taken weeks, months, and years of constantly seeking more and more information to help me to understand my new journey. It seems to be a never-ending process of sorting out old and new, good and bad, boring and exciting information. The literature, Eckhart Tolle, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose, I have read describes my experience as a self or spiritual awakening, a state of conscious living where my subconscious mind doesn't have to be my leader. I am reminded daily by being a conscious person to stay focused and committed on being a healthier individual. While in prison for impaired drunk driving back in 2009, I was having odd, reoccurring, painful, and awkward dreams of what seemed to be my childhood. I spoke frequently with my parents while I was incarcerated and had mentioned the things I was experiencing. In an effort to guide me in the right direction, they sent me reading materials such as Giving the Love That Heals, A Guide for Parents by Helen Hunt and Harville Hendricks, Managing Your Mind by Tony Hope, and Simple Living in a Complex World. These readings provided me with a lot of insight into my life. In the very early morning hours of January 5th, 2010, I awoke from a night's sleep feeling a change in my being. I was unsure of why this was or how it came to be, but I was very happy about it. To me, it felt like I had no more worries. I remember laying there, smiling to myself and having a profound feeling of thankfulness and gratitude. I can only explain it as tranquility and calmness. I felt free in my mind, happy in my spirit, and content with my being. Even though I was imprisoned, I felt free. Not free to do what I wanted, but free to live and grow and experience life. I can say that one day I woke up and things changed for me. I'm not saying all was good from there on and had no more troubles, but the troubles that did arise didn't drain my being of energy, didn't lead me to negative thoughts and destructive behavior, but rather I was able to face them with patience for a positive outcome and an understanding that I have healthy and unhealthy choices. I have acknowledged and accepted my past, found forgiveness and peace, and have been sober since October 2017. So that was Alex's entry, and I am completely blown away. Thank you, Alex, for sending that in. And it's such a powerful story of transformation and enlightenment and awakening. And thank you so much for sharing. Although I didn't have problems with substances, I think I went to a similar place where you were probably at one point in time. And I know that feeling of unexplainable freedom when you have felt so long just constrained and confined and just depressed in your own life. So I am so grateful to have you here, Alex, on this journey with me. And thank you so much for writing in. And you know what? I love the Epiphany Vault just because of stuff like this. It's so great because people use it as they please. I have people writing in that use it to manifest. I have people writing in that use it as a journal. Some people use it to ask a specific question, but I'm just so grateful, and I'm down with all of it. And I'm so grateful that I can serve. So thank you so much, Alex, for your entry and for sharing that with everyone here. And much love to you. So, on to today's podcast. This was a question submitted when I was doing a deep dive into your number one question about codependency out there. And I thought it was interesting and worth going over and just dedicating a whole podcast episode to this. And once again, the question that was asked was, will the loving relationship I want ever be? First, let me just put this out there as my kind of standard disclaimer. Is this podcast and my answer to these questions are my personal opinion and experiences only, does not substitute for medical or therapeutic advice, and please seek help if you feel like those professionals will benefit you. And I think the one reason that I'm interested in this question is because, if I'm honest, I've asked myself this before, if not many times in the past. With my codependent past, I always felt like I was chasing or trying to please or trying to be just right and just perfect for someone to like me. What I didn't know then, but what I know now, is that I was doing those things to fill up what I call an empty love tank. Subconsciously, my understanding of a loving relationship was one that took away all of the pain and suffering, one that would relieve me forever of a cruel and hurtful world. One that would just snap its fingers and make me happy. And I'm making it sound dramatic, and if it sounds like a sappy fairy tale vibe, it is. I learned the hard way that this is just not realistic in a relationship. I learned the hard way that the only person that was going to fill up that love tank was me. I learned the hard way that no matter how hard I tried, no matter what I did, no matter how beautiful I looked, no matter how great at sex I was, the only true relationship that I needed to focus on was my own. And I know you hear that a lot on this podcast, but when you get it like I got it, let me tell you, you freaking get it. And I think, Alex is a great example of that. So that was the first revelation. And that mountain, for me, I had to climb that mountain of the first revelation in love. That's 3 years in the making. And dear listener, if in not knowing where you are in your journey and asking that question, I can only speak from my experience. But if I'm completely honest and brutally honest, the question that you ask would not even be broached at this point by the awakened me. Because the awakened me sees the facade and importance of relationship as false. Although important in one's life, yes, but not the fairy tale that we were all convinced it should be. And because the awakened me knows that the more she seeks for something, the more that she is lacking in that one thing. Therefore, if I am seeking for relationship, I'm telling myself and I'm telling the universe that I am therefore lacking that exact thing in my life. And because the awakened me already feels full, done. So the awakened me is not searching for a romantic relationship, but rather is open to one if he is invited into my life. And listener, I would try to reframe the question and ask yourself, will the loving relationship with myself ever be? Because I believe that is really what you're asking. Deep down, I do believe that's the question. I'm not sure if that registers with you right now, but I see it, and I encourage you to work on that question instead. And if that is the question, how would you answer? What does that relationship with yourself look like? How does it feel in your mind and in your heart and your body? And how do we get there? So I'll leave those questions up to you and hope they help. Please feel free to write into the Epiphany Vault if you feel so called to do so. I'm here. One other point I want to kind of say about that question is future reaching, which I'm catching a lot of kind of implicit future projecting with this question as well, is how can we learn to be in a loving relationship with ourselves right here, right now? Why do we think we need a loving relationship to be happy? Just some things to think about as you ruminate on this question. And that's it for today, magnificent souls. One quick announcement is that I have opened up one spot for one-on-one coaching, just one. So if you feel called to work together, please email me at hi@attracthealthbuildwealth.com or message me on any of the social media platforms to set up a complimentary discovery call. So this window is going to close August 15th. Much love to you out there, magnificent souls, living and loving.